There are some words we use all the time without really thinking about what they first meant. And a big one is the word church. It turns out the original blueprint for what it means to be a church might actually surprise you, and it has very little to do with buildings or organizations. So let me just ask you, what is a church? When you hear that word, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it a place? A global institution? Well, according to the original text, the answer is way more fundamental than all that. For a lot of us, maybe it's a building with a steeple, or maybe it's the online service you stream on a Sunday morning. For others, it's a huge global denomination, or maybe even just a nonprofit organization on paper. The point is, today, that one word means a whole lot of different things to different people. But here's the thing. The sources we're digging into today make a really fascinating point. The original word that the New Testament authors actually used meant something incredibly specific. And nope, it wasn't any of those modern ideas. And that word is ekklesia. It's a Greek word, and it's pretty simple, really. It just means a called-out assembly. The absolute core of the idea is a group of people physically gathered together. It's not about the building, it's not about the institution, it's about the people, assembled. What's so interesting, though, is how the Bible itself shows us that not all assemblies are the same. There's this one dramatic story that perfectly illustrates this. You could almost call it a tale of two very different kinds of ekklesia. Okay, so for this we have to go to the book of Acts, chapter 19. The scene is a full-blown riot kicking off in the ancient city of Ephesus. Basically, a local silversmith gets worried about his business and whips up this massive, angry crowd. And here is the crucial detail. The word the text uses to describe this chaotic, confused mob, it's ekklesia. It literally says, the assembly was confused, and that most of the people there didn't even know why they'd shown up. So yeah, it was an assembly, but it was one that was totally driven by chaos and emotion. But then, the town clerk steps in to try and calm everybody down. And get this, he uses the exact same word ekklesia, but in a totally different way. He says, hey, this needs to be handled in a lawful assembly, meaning an orderly, official gathering that actually has a purpose. And this just lays it all out, right? On the one hand, you've got the mob. It's confused, angry, aimless, and unlawful. But on the other side, you have the ideal of a lawful ekklesia. Purposeful, orderly, accountable, and, well, lawful. It's the same word, but describing two completely opposite realities. And this whole idea of order is just foundational. It gets reinforced right here in this verse from 1 Corinthians. It says God is a God of peace, not confusion. And that's the principle that's supposed to define all the assemblies of the saints. Okay, so if an ekklesia is supposed to be this orderly, accountable assembly, what does that actually look like? Well, the text suggests it's not just a random get-together. It's a group with defined relationships, which leads us straight to the idea of membership and leadership. Let's see how this all connects. The way the sources explain this structure is with a really classic metaphor. It starts with this one simple idea. An individual believer is like a sheep. And of course, a sheep isn't really designed to be alone, right? It's pretty vulnerable by itself. A sheep needs a flock, a specific group that it belongs to, for community and for safety. And finally, a flock needs a shepherd, someone to guide it, to protect it, and to be responsible for it. See how that all fits together? You have the sheep, the flock, and the shepherd. The individual, the community, and the leadership, all working together. And this isn't just some nice little story, it's presented as a direct model for accountability. This verse from Hebrews talks about leaders who watch for your souls and who will have to give an account for them. I mean, for that to even be possible, there has to be a clear relationship. You need to know who your shepherd is, and the shepherd has to know who's in their flock. And this accountability isn't just top-down, from the shepherd to the sheep. It's also about mutual care among the members. Believers are described as being like different parts of one body, where every part is supposed to care for all the others. And that kind of deep commitment, well, that's really hard to do in isolation. It kind of requires being part of a gathered assembly. So all of this brings us to a really modern question. In our digital age, with online streaming and everything, can a virtual gathering be a true ekklesia? How does this ancient idea even apply to a world of screens? So how does this ancient concept fit our digital world? Well, the argument presented is that while virtual fellowship is amazing for things like teaching and encouragement, it kind of struggles to replicate some of the other core functions. I mean, think about it. Key physical, embodied practices like breaking bread together, or just the little nuances of face to face community and oversight, those are really limited when we're not actually in the same room.
So, the main takeaway here is that virtual gatherings are seen as a fantastic supplement to community, but they're not a replacement for it. They just don't quite fit that core original definition of an ekklesia, which at its heart is about a physically gathered body of people. And this perspective is really rooted in verses just like this one from Hebrews, which flat out encourages believers not to give up the practice of assembling together. And that key word there, once again, is together, and it strongly implies a physical presence. So let's just pull this all together. What's the ideal ekklesia according to this blueprint? Well, it's not a chaotic mob. It's a unified body with a shared purpose. It's not a bunch of autonomous individuals, but an accountable community. It's not just a spontaneous event, but a structured and orderly gathering. And maybe most importantly, it's not governed by outrage, but by love and genuine care for one another. And at the end of the day, all of this comes back to a foundational promise. The real power of the assembly isn't about its size or its building, but about the simple act of gathering in a shared purpose, where Christ himself is promised to be present. Which really just leaves us with one last thing to think about. We live in a world that feels more and more digital and disconnected every day. So based on this original blueprint we've been looking at, what does it really mean for us today to truly and meaningfully assemble?